why do light rays bounce back and forth in a telescope?
Who is speeding up the retirement of the steam locomotive?
Ever try to find the center of an oval tray?
What kind of wall can be used as a chalkboard?
Industry on Parade. A brand new look at our America. Produced on film each week by the National Association of Manufacturers.
Vanderbilt University at Nashville, Tennessee. Newest addition to its extensive facilities is to be found not here on the campus, but several miles out of town on the crest of a wooded hill to which a special road had to be constructed. It's a matter of great local interest and pride when, after long preparation, the Arthur J Dyer Observatory is finally completed with the installation of a powerful, versatile Baker Reflector Telescope, first of its kind in the world. For it was the contributions of Nashville citizens and business firms that made erection of the $250,000 observatory possible. Shipped down here very carefully by special truck from the Norwalk, Connecticut optical plant of the Perkin Elmer Corporation, the optic elements are just as carefully set in place at the base of the long tube. Unlike a pocket telescope, the lenses of an astronomical telescope are mostly mirrors. Mirrors that have been ground and polished with mathematical accuracy to enlarge the image of the sky. In the process of being magnified, a light ray is reflected several times the full length of the tube before it strikes the film that will record it. Dr. Carl Seyfert, head of Vanderbilt's astronomy department, in recognition of the community's role in making the observatory a reality, has incorporated a prism on the side of the telescope that can reveal secrets of outer space to the naked eye. So now, on visitors' days, residents queue up in long lines, patiently awaiting their turn to have a look-see. A well-earned opportunity to glimpse the heavens through their telescope. Through the years, Americans have learned that machines create jobs. We know that machines have shortened hours, raised wages, and made it possible to manufacture the things we need for our standard of living at prices that people can afford to pay. Machines make life easier for everyone. They do the work and remove the strain. They call for greater specialization. That gives workers a chance to use more mind and less muscle, and to develop new skills. In short, it makes them masters of the machine, operators, inspectors, and supervisors.
The Chesapeake and Ohio Railway's main repair shops at Huntington, West Virginia. Built in the heyday of the steam locomotive, the 90-acre plant now is in drastic need of alteration if it's to handle the diesels that are rapidly replacing the old-style locomotives. Engineers estimate it'll take 2 or 3 years just to plan the necessary remodeling, for the facilities were not too well laid out by modern standards. Employees who work in the sprawling shops, however, can't see waiting that long to correct the jumbled, inefficient layout. During lunch periods, after hours, all on their own time, they get together and discuss what a railroad shop should be like. One thing they decide, the wheel shop has to be closer to the center of things, so wheels won't have to be trundled half a mile to where they're needed. There were a lot of suggestions like that, many of which were incorporated in a 15 by 17-foot model they put together, again on their own time. They built mock-ups of cranes, engines, wheels, and so on, all to exact scale in order to try out their ideas. When they'd eliminated most of the bugs, they presented their plan to the company's top management. After thorough study by the board of directors, who were delighted by the spontaneous demonstration of company spirit, the plan was given a green light, and the task of translating the proposals into blueprints is now underway. The days of steam appear to be numbered as the railroads keep up with progress. And keeping up too, or even a little ahead, are the men who service the trains and see to it that the wheels continue to turn.
Is that that molten iron being poured into the mold? Not quite. It's molten silver being cast into ingots. We're at the plant of one of our big producers of the beautiful, useful objects that can be made only from this precious metal. The craftsmen of Gorham Manufacturing Company of Providence, Rhode Island, take ingots of silver alloyed with just a trace of pure copper, and first of all remove the scale that formed on the outside during the casting process. Next step is reducing the ingot in thickness. Many tons of silver pass through the rollers every hour. Getting the metal down to the desired thickness is a gradual job. Again and again it's sent through, and each time the wheel is turned to bring the rollers closer together, making the silver slab thinner and wider and longer. When it's precisely the right thickness for a sterling silver meat tray, let's say, they cut off a piece to the proper length. This flat metal strip now will go to the stamping department where shaping will begin. Two matched dies, one below and one mounted on the drop hammer above, slammed together on the blank, giving the silver exactly the contours as well as the thickness in all areas intended by the designer. Another bang under hundreds of tons of force, and the roughly formed tray is ready after trimming for a long series of additional operations that will transform it into, well, almost a work of art. Here we see how they put a decorative rim on the tray. Trays come under the heading of hollowware as compared with flatware, which includes knives, forks, and spoons. Other hollowware items include pitchers, bowls, and the like. Here's a demanding job, determining whether an oval-shaped tray is truly an oval. One misjudgment, one slip of the wrist, and a valuable piece of sterling would go back to the melting furnace. Another hand operation is chasing, which starts with the transferring to the tray of a lamp-black outline of the design that will be gently tapped or chased into the silver. The black outline of a very delicate design is scarcely visible, but the well-trained eye of the chaser will detect every tiny curlicue, and his equally well-trained hands will hammer it into the metal. Hours of painstaking craftsmanship go into every article turned out, and finally the tray is finished. At last it can be polished to show off the full shimmering beauty it had within it all the time. Take a precious metal, work it and shape it according to a pleasing artistic design. Add a few cuts of choice meat and, well, pardon us please while we put down our camera and join these gentlemen for lunch.
When our forefathers came to America centuries ago, they sought freedom and independence. Here they built an economic system giving us the world's highest standard of living. Under this system of free, competitive enterprise, American business and industry has grown. Until today, there are 4 million enterprises providing nearly 63 million jobs. The average American employee works shorter hours, earns more money, and produces more goods than any other worker in the world. That's our business and industrial system. Let's keep it free and growing.
Industry on Parade visits a Brooklyn factory to learn a little about what's new in the ever-changing paint industry. The answer is plenty. New types of paint, new applicators, new methods of manufacture, and new high production records. America is using far more paint than ever before, as firms like this one, Sapolin Paints Incorporated, well know. 3 times as much will be used by homeowners and other do-it-yourself painters as by professionals. And even so, the professionals are busy as never before. With all this activity in the industry, it's fortunate the paint makers have machines capable of keeping up with it. Machines like the automatic can filler, for example. But it's equally fortunate that they hold a finger constantly on the public pulse, so as to detect new customer requirements months or even years before the public generally is aware of them. A management committee meets regularly with Vice President Richard Eckhart to discuss letters that have come in, suggesting new paints for various purposes. 1 or 2 letters may not bring immediate action. They'll be tabled for the time being. But let more than that come in. Let field researchers express the need, enough to indicate a genuine demand, and they go to work on it without delay. Here in the lab, maintained just to develop special paints for special purposes, a dozen or more experiments may be in progress at one time. New formulas are mixed and tested endlessly. Here they're trying out a paint they've been working at for a long time, one that can bring color to hot pipes, stoves, and radiators without blistering or discoloring. Small pieces of metal are coated, some with the new paint, some with older types. After they've dried thoroughly, the samples will get a trial by fire. There'll also be tests for durability, wear, resistance to fading, ease of application, and many other things. The metal coated with an ordinary oil-based paint flares up almost instantly. Now the one coated with the experimental paint, nothing. After surviving the other tests just as conclusively, the experimental label is taken off and a new paint goes on the market. All started perhaps by some letter-writing householder who wondered why radiators had to be either bronze or aluminum. Other innovations that developed in the same way are paints specially designed for concrete, mildew-proof paints. And here's one, a porcelain-like paint for refrigerators. There are paints that are odorless and those that give a hand-rubbed effect without the actual rubbing. One of the newcomers for which a big future may be waiting is a paint that will frost glass, making it translucent but not transparent. Yes, the paint manufacturers are on their toes. Not many letters come into them suggesting a new product that hasn't already been given considerable thought. Why, they've even got a paint for homes with small children that will transform a nursery wall into a chalkboard. Kids will write on walls, no matter what they're painted with. But now, Mama can simply erase their handiwork with a damp cloth.